All right, everyone, welcome to the video. In this video, we're talking about the four masculine archetypes presented in this book, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover by Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette. This is a very good, short book, concise and to the point about what they believe are the four fundamental energies and poles to masculine development. Now, we're going to go through each of them briefly, and I'm going to tell you right now the rules of how this works. So the way they present it in the book is that each of these four archetypes, each of them has like a pyramid or a triangle, and at the top of it is the healthy or full manifestation of each archetype, and at the two poles on the left and the right describe a deficiency or an excess of that archetype that get into some of its negative aspects. Now, if you're familiar with some philosophy, Aristotle had a similar idea or approach, but to virtues, where we have a middle full expression, then we have a deficiency and an excess. If you're into that, that can be a good cross reference for this work. Okay, so there's four archetypes: King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. These are the four poles of masculine development of a man. In the middle here, this is a Jungian model, a Jungian expression of it. We have a man or a healthy masculine person in the middle with four full expressions at each corner, just like a compass. Now, a good way to picture this, because these overlap, think of it more like a four-leaf clover rather than separate and distinct. They are separate, but they also overlap. All right, let's start with the king. The king archetype is, as they say in the book, the ruler of a man's psyche. This is the most important one. They also say that it takes a little longer to come online. They actually claim it is the last to come online as a boy matures and becomes an adult into manhood. The king archetype is a productive leader. The king energy is generative. It likes to create, it likes to make things, and such as resources, make money, be able to contribute, be able to support other people. Think of it as the ruler of one's home, the ruler at one's job, whatever responsibilities they have. The king takes those responsibilities, seeks to be productive and generative with those responsibilities. Now, the king is also an ordering archetype, meaning it sets right order to things. Is your house in order? Is your room in order? Is your workplace in order? That king energy embodies the concept known as the logos, which is in part in ordering things. The things are put into their right place at the right time. So it's a combination of almost a managerial, administrative orderliness, this foresight, this sight to prepare and order things in their appropriate way, and to be generative, to be productive, to not be so concerned with how your experience is, but are you lifting up the people around you? Are you supporting your family? Are you supporting the people who rely on you? So the king's poles become the tyrant or the weakling. The tyrant is too much rule, too much leadership. It's this aggressive meanness where the king may feel his energy threatened and he lashes out and he punishes other people. He is a tyrant in his home. He is a tyrant perhaps to himself. He is a tyrant in his leadership roles. He's a tyrant wherever he goes. And next, the weakling. The weakling is the exact opposite, the one who feels powerless. They can't get anything done. They feel weak. They can't get through anything. Their leadership is anti-leadership. It's a lack of leadership. It is a deficiency of king energy. It lacks it entirely. Now, a great example of the king and its two poles being played out is in the movie Braveheart. We have the ruthless but very effective tyrant king who is feared in the land. He rules through fear, but he's very effective. He is very competent and a bit scary. And then his son, the weakling kind of prince, who is technically next in line, but the king rules through his weakling son, and you can see how the tyrant of the king's energy was so belittling to his son that the son has so little confidence and belief in his own leadership. And then in the middle of that would be the main character, William Wallace, who has more of an integrated an integrated effect with between these two poles. Next, we have the warrior. Think of the warrior as the samurai. Think of the warrior as the Spartan 300, the selfless hero, the disciplined, focused, sacrificial warrior. There's a lot of energy going on here with the warrior. In part, it is an aggression, it is a fighting spirit, it is I will not lose, I'm going to do everything I can to overpower my opponent. It has a lot of things going in for it. But it's basically a man's ability to focus, to endure, to build himself up, to be tough, to deal with life, and to be appropriately detached as a decision maker and as someone who endures under difficult circumstances. Now, the poles here are sadist and masochist. The sadist delights in the punishment of other people, usually through the warrior's own suffering when that lashes out onto others. You think of someone like Darth Vader, who enjoys punishing others, who enjoys the suffering of others by sharing his own suffering and thinking that that's a justice to do so. And then the masochist can be either a warrior who pushes himself too hard, who suffers more than is necessary, who thinks there's some kind of glory in just absorbing the pain, versus being a little more wise and not suffering more than you need to. That's a distinction they make in the book, that a warrior manifested fully believes that yes, life has some suffering, life has some difficulty, I have to endure, I have to build up my toughness, but I don't need to suffer more than I need to. That is an immature expression of the warrior when we enjoy the suffering, enjoy the pain just for the sake of it. However, the masochist also has a passive element like the weakling, where it's not just I enjoy my pain, it's also I don't feel effective that I can do anything about it. I can't change my circumstances. I can't change my life. So they do nothing. That is another way the masochist affects us. But the warrior is someone who's tough, is stoic, is detached, is going through life, perseveres towards his goals or towards the mission or towards whatever, and expresses himself as a selfless and skilled soldier or pursuer of his goals. Next is the magician. Now, the magician is someone who requires and seeks after secret knowledge, knowledge that other people don't necessarily know a lot about, or knowledge that requires a high threshold of skill, ability, and acquisition. Now, this can range all over the place. It can be very technical, like having the technical skills of a mechanic or a plumber, or more scientific, a scientist or a physicist studying the elemental pieces of the universe. Or it can be more of a spiritual investigator or a psychologist, someone who has secret knowledge, who people go to be empowered and for knowledge to be imparted onto them. There are many magicians in our culture ranging all over the place, from a physical therapist to a nutritionist to a doctor, even to a priest who has some of the magician aspects to him. So the magician is about the intellect. It's about an understanding of how the universe works, the application of your skills. Now, there are two elements that they talk about of the magician. One is just knowledge. It's my head knowledge. Do I know things? Second, they call technology, or rather, how to apply that knowledge. There's two phases here of learning, acquiring, and then applying. Now, I picked learned teacher for the phrase to describe the magician. Not all magicians are teachers, but they have the capacity to shape others through their knowledge. And the magician energy, particularly in the archetype of like the old sage man, that is a aged magician who imparts his wisdom onto others. Now, the poles here are manipulator, and they call it the denying innocent one. The manipulator is one who uses his knowledge or lack of, presents himself as if he knows more than he does to manipulate other people. The manipulator often enjoys making other people feel stupid or being able to play them like a marionette with their little strings. The manipulator delights in feeling superior with whatever he knows and angling things in a way so that other people feel stupid and like they have to be dependent on the manipulator. Whereas the innocent one, or as they called it, the denying innocent one, think of it as like a clueless person, but someone who finds moral virtue in their cluelessness. Like, investigating that book or that knowledge, that is sinful or wrong. that is a pull away from investigation and exploration. The innocent one feels, the denying innocent one feels a sense of virtue for their lack of knowledge, for keeping knowledge away, for keeping exploration away. The magician in general is concerned with exploration, discovery, curiosity, and doesn't easily prevent themselves from knowing something. And then lastly, the lover. The lover, this is a bit complex because when we see lover, we think sex, we think passion. Yes, those are a big part of it, but there is an energy deeper than that. I call it the refined taster. The way they say it in the book is having an appetite for life. You think of words like eros or libido. We associate sexual energy with that, and yes, that is definitely there, but it is the energy to create, to make, to taste, to explore. It's much more varied and much more comprehensive than just sexuality. This is where a man develops his taste for art or music or his favorite foods or exploring the different sensual experiences that life has to offer. This is where he becomes more picky with what he eats, potentially, where he enjoys certain things and says, I don't want that because I've experienced it all. This is also an exploration archetype, but it's more in the physical world. It's more in the visceral, the sensual, in all different five senses. Now, they make the argument here that the lover also has a very spiritual aspect to it, where it becomes an energy where the man feels connected to the world, a sensitivity to the connectivity of the universe and other people. That is a kind of a hidden part of it because we see the concrete reality of food and sexuality and pleasures and drink, all that stuff, and fun experiences. But there is this spiritual underline to it of the creative nature, the creative drive, the spiritual unity of things. That is a piece of the lover that's less easily understood. Now, here we have the two poles, the addicted and the impotent lover. The addicted lover is someone who relies on the sensual expression and consumption to fill him up. He is, as they say in the book, lost in his senses. He's drowning in the sensual world. And this is the source of addictions of all sorts, where we want to be consumed by the sensations to numb the pain and to bump up the pleasure. Now, the impotent lover, I think the best way to think about this is a total repression of the instincts, of that creative, chaotic energy that a man has that he can manifest to make the world better, but pushing that down because it has this chaotic, dangerous element to it that he is out of touch with his senses. He's out of touch with any of his primal nature. He's pushed that away. He's rejected that, or that hasn't been allowed to be manifest in his life. So he is totally detached from his appetite. But the interesting part here, like with all of these poles, they have this internal-external relationship where, yes, it might be like this most of the time, but then it snaps and then he gets addicted to something very strongly, perhaps for a short period of time, beyond his control. Now, what is happening there, I think what they would argue is that is a compensation going on. If you're so far onto one side of these poles, eventually it's going to snap and swing to the other side, at least temporarily, to try and get some energy from the other side. So this is the base four pillars: king, warrior, magician, lover, and their poles, and how these energies manifest within a man, and how they manifest, hopefully, in a mature man with the unity of these two poles that are a little deficient and a little bit excessive. All right, guys, that's the four pillars in brief. I would encourage you to think about, in society, in your family culture, which of these were allowed to be manifest, which of them were encouraged, which of them were not, which of them were rejected, which of them were viewed as threatening. They make the argument in the book, and I agree, on a cultural level, the warrior is the most pushed away. It's the most dangerous. It's the most uncontrollable in a man, because this is the one that challenges authority. This is the one that does not easily succumb to pressures. So this is the one that's denied and pushed away. Think about the emergence of video games and the potential addiction to video games as a way to manifest the repressed warrior. Likewise, and I agree again, the one that is most elevated in our culture is magician. Think about all the podcasts and the speakers and the courses and the education and the skills and the tools of the trade. This is the one we have probably in excess of. There's so much information, there's so many podcasts, there's so many different ways to learn, right? That this is perhaps in excess, but it's definitely one that's elevated, and the warrior is the one that's pushed down the most. But I would also encourage you to explore this in your own life. Which energy do you feel the most drawn to as something that you relate to the most? And then which one is pushed away or repressed or pushed down or viewed or even vilified potentially? Ultimately, this material, this book, these archetypes, they're really only as helpful as we allow ourselves to apply them to our own lives, to our own reflection. So I would encourage you to reflect on that. Think about the society that you're in, the culture that you're in, the family and environment and the figures that influence you, what they are, and then look into yourself and say, okay, which ones do I relate to? Which ones am I antagonistic towards? And perhaps there's one or two kind of in between. So thanks for stopping by, guys, and we're going to continue going into each of these archetypes in the near future.